have you looked at OpenWebUI recently?
Oh, I think you mentioned this before, right? This tool before.
Yeah, before it seemed like it was just a front end for for developing, I mean for just using as the chat interface, but it's an open source project and it seems that they've made a lot of improvements to the project that do many of the things that I wanted to do with my project. So, if you got a few minutes, I just want to show it to you and see what you think about it.
Good. I send you also the link, if you remember, for another tool that I
Yep.
found. Have you tested that?
The thing that I like about the thing that I like about Open Web UI though is I hear about it a lot. People are talking about it a lot. They're making YouTube videos about it. So it seems like there's a community around it, and I've been hearing about it, since I basically started working on this. And it seems like it was spun out of Olama. It used to be Olama's front end. I don't know exactly why they split it up and changed the name, but it works really well with Olama. It does seem like Olama is becoming sort of the default uh, thing for launching these local AI models, correct? The open source AI models. It seems like Olama is like the main thing people are using for that, correct? And uh yeah, it's so it works really well with Olama, and it's just, let me just show it to you basically. So I installed it using Docker, and it was like super simple. And it's running locally on the machine right now. So I just go to localhost 3000, and this is the interface. And once you have Olama downloaded as well, you can pull whatever models you want into this locally. My computer doesn't run anything besides Phi 3 locally very well that I've tried, like even the Llama like 7B, and obviously the 70B, or Llama 8B and Llama 70B. Um, they uh you know my computer's way too slow, and it like freezes up and stuff when I try and run those models. But I was very easily able to integrate the it has a setting here um for the APIs for whatever APIs you want to add. So I added my OpenAI API here, and I signed up for a Grok account. You're familiar with Grok? Yeah. And I added that API here. And now I have, when I go to chat, I have, all the OpenAI models and all the models that are through Grok. And it's like, you know, um, tell me a story about a monkey in the jungle. Just that, I mean, look how fast this is.
Yeah, growth is super fast.
So, and I've, this is so, having the interface, right? Having um, the intelligence where I can switch between models really easily depending on what the task is, right? Um, and then the community around this. So I haven't gone super deep into this, but it looks like when you go to, for example, let's see, models it also has embedding, so you can add documents into it for RAG. And I believe that the Docker container that I installed with this has a ChromaDB as a part of the Docker instance that also runs locally. on the machine. So that storage and retrieval, aspect and being able to control that seems like it's built into this. I can enable web search with it. So it searches the web, but only if I want it to. So when I go to like a chat, I can specifically say if I want it to search the web or not. Um, I can run it obviously with an internet connection to use OpenAI's API and the Grok API, but I could also run it without an internet connection if I want to use the locally hosted models that I have.
Yep.
Let's see what else. And then the community part of this. So if I'm trying to find where
Can you tab on personalization? What's there?
yeah, so it seems like they're trying to um
Are cloning like ChatGPT interface, right? Yes,
yeah,
this is
it seems like they're trying to, but you have to actually add these manually here. It
so it doesn't
doesn't,
extract from conversation.
I don't believe so, no, because I have chatted with this.
Okay.
Um, you know, but it feels like that might be in a direction that they're moving. It does vision, like I can upload the nutrition labels to it and it extracts the information. But the cool thing that I really like, if I can find it, oh, here we go. Dashboard. No, workspace. Okay, so I can customize my own model based off of this. You can go to the community and they have like a community um, that has developed prompts that you can pull in. They have function calling that they've integrated in. Different types of tools, and like they have that community already that's like building this stuff. You know what I mean?
This is very good.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, I mean this is very good. Like if they have this option that you can create custom tools from this UI interface,
Right.
is like very cool.
So this is what I was kind of hoping existed, right? And I think that I don't know how new Docker is, but it seems like using Docker along with this stuff has opened up like a whole world of like making this really easy, for people to do. Is that reflective of what you're seeing in the market?
Yes, Docker. Uh, if remember, I explained you this before that we were planning to execute your project also using Docker. And
Correct.
Docker is really old. And what Docker does, it's like creating small container, like a space in your computer. And it doesn't matter if I build the software on Windows, then you can run it on your device or any other device. It should work because it's like creating independent environment that this software can run. Because a lot of times happens like if I build this on my Windows machine, if we don't use Docker, for example, and then I send it to you, like last time, it wasn't working on your machine. That's why we started creating these Docker files. And so Docker is just basically creating this independent environment. And that's what they did. And this is, but what the Docker part of it is not the coolest part that I saw, but everything else looks like exactly like ChatGPT, and they're like trying to build this. And it's also the cool thing that you can switch between models. This is also good.
Yeah, and the fact that it has RAG built in too, right?
Yeah, and ChromaDB, this is open source. Like you can run this database locally. The only thing, like, if you want super performant Chroma, like vector store, because I tested different models, like different embeddings models and different vector store models, because vector stores, they provide this search functionality themselves. It's not it's not developer who create this search functionality. It's provided with from this database itself. We found that Pinecone is the most accurate in terms of uh, returning the matching documents. Mm. But I tested this like just they're all good, but if you want the top, like the most accurate, it's Pinecone, and Pinecone is not on open source. Like you have to pay for using it. ChromaDB is good enough because it's open source. You can run it locally. You can host it on the cloud and then use it from there. I think we discussed this before already.
Yeah. So yeah, it feels to me like this would be pretty easy to host in the cloud as well, right?
Yes,
I mean, if I can
I
host it
think so.
locally, I should be able to host it in the cloud as well, right? So yeah, so I guess my thought right now is I would rather start spending your developer time on this versus continuing to build out our own system, since this is further along and already has a community around it. But also, um, it doesn't seem like the community's all that big right now. So there's an opportunity to kind of be an early participant in shaping, how all this plays out. Um, and yeah, so I don't know what your thoughts are around that, or if you want to take some time to look at it more, or what your initial thoughts would be.
Um, okay, my initial thought about this project, I see like as a developer, I see a lot of cool stuff that I can use myself, so I don't have to build this from scratch. But you will have to decide if you're thinking that this tool does what you need, because your intent was to build your like personal health assistant, right? Uh, they build this as a general thing that they're replicating basically ChatGPT, and you can run any models because ChatGPT is only with OpenAI. They are doing it. It's ChatGPT, but you can use with different models. That's what this tool does. You're saying that this is fine. Then yes, we don't have to. Why we'll have to build this from scratch if this tool already exists?
Right. So yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I think what I would like is for the next round of work from your side is to put it into looking at OpenWebUI, and like there's a whole list of questions that I'm gonna have around this. And like for example, when I'm using the OpenAI API, like how much of my data from my ChromaDB and all of that is going to
I can answer right
OpenAI?
now.
Huh?
I can answer this right now.
Okay.
Okay, let's say you use this tool. It doesn't matter which tool you used. You used any tool and you have your vector store. In this case, it's ChromaDB if you're using OpenWebUI, right? If you're using OpenWebUI, then you have your ChromaDB. This is your vector store. It consists all documents that you uploaded. This is basically your knowledge base for this system. And you have there maybe 1,000 documents there you uploaded in this knowledge base. And when you interact with this tool, with OpenWebUI, you ask certain questions. And if you enable this tool, the retrieval tool, that queries your ChromaDB, it queries the most relevant matching documents. Like it returns only the documents that, not all your documents, not all 1,000 documents. It returns mainly 3 or 4 related to your query. And each of them, like there is 3 different types of, there is actually many algorithms to search relevant documents, but the main one is cosine, Euclidean, and I think dot product. By default, all of them, they're using this cosine search algorithm. And this is the most, it depends on which use case, but in this case, cosine is it's good enough. So they use this cosine algorithm to search for relevant documents. Each search also returns the score number. This score number shows how relevant these documents to your query. And the score is between 0 and 1. If it's closer to 1, then it means it's very relevant. If it's close to 0, it means it's like far from relevancy. In general, it's 0.7. If it's more than 0.7, then this is good enough. And their return, you can also specify how many documents you want to return. it can say you can return only 2 documents per query, you can return 4 documents. So you understand, right, this part?
Let me say that back to you. So let's say that we build this health agent and I have like my blood work in the database, right?
Yes.
And I say, how was my cholesterol, on my blood work? I put that into OpenWebUI. Does that go to OpenAI immediately, or does it go first to something on the OpenWebUI side that decides like, okay, these are the documents that I want to retrieve to send to OpenAI? It is happening on the OpenWebUI side first.
Yes, it's happening like it's happening in this tool. There is retrieval tool which queries your database. So it first goes through this tool, and this tool returns the matching documents from your knowledge base. In this case, if it's blood, then it returns the matching documents from this blood knowledge, from blood documents, and not all of them. It will return maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 documents from your knowledge
But it
base.
is then sending that to the OpenAI API to
Yes.
analyze, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is there any, besides them telling me that they're not using that data to train their stuff, is there any way for me to know that that's the case for sure?
Say again?
So OpenAI is going to say, we don't train or keep your data or anything, right? That's what they say, right?
Yes. But I
Um,
think they
and there's no way for me to know that for sure that
no.
they don't. Okay. All right. So, um, so, but the same thing could be true of Grok as well for the open source
I'm,
models that
yes.
Grok is hosting.
Yes,
Okay.
any hosting provider that hosts this AI model, like Grok, they're just hosting this. They're basically open source model. They just host it and provide API service around
So
this
it's the
open source.
same thing. It's the same potential issue. However, if I have to trust someone, it's probably better to trust Grok because they're not in the business of trying to create AGI like OpenAI is. Yeah.
Um, I yes, but I think you said this before. Data is gold, and if they have this data, they can collect this data even if they don't use it right now. They can still collect this data, and maybe sometime in the future they can use this data to fine tune or improve any open source model, and it will be much smarter than they
Okay.
can basically
So the
collect the data set.
incentive is for them to, start using this data since it's being sent to them. Okay. Is there a way that would be more private and give me more confidence that I could run this in the cloud and that my data is not being used?
For example, if you host your own open source model, you have your own OpenWebUI. You said that you can run this Llama, any open source model locally, and you can use it locally. And it means that your data doesn't go to OpenAI or any other tools. Same thing, we can host your open source model in the cloud, like in Google Cloud, for example. And also we can host your OpenWebUI. We can deploy it to there, and we can make that your hosted OpenWebUI communicates with your hosted AI model. That
So
will
what
be
what you're saying is, if I could say that back to you, is um instead of using a managed host that's hosting all these different models and hooking that API into the Open Web UI, we take the open source models that we want to use and put them on our own private cloud basically and host those on our private cloud. And that way we are sending data to the cloud, but it's a cloud that we control and we've set up the environment for. And so we have much more confidence that the data is not being used outside of our private cloud. And actually, we probably could tell if data was being sent outside of our private cloud. There probably may be a way to do that, right?
yes, but it wouldn't go anywhere. Like the communication will be only between your hosted in the your hosted OpenWebUI and your hosted AI model. That's the
And
communication there.
and
It will
is that going to
out.
be super expensive to set up a cloud, a private cloud that can run these models?
Well, it depends on the usage. If you're using this yourself, it will be expensive, but it wouldn't be like the most expensive part will be hosting the AI model. That's the most expensive part, and depends on which model you decide to host. Is it the largest one or the smallest model? Because we need the compute power for that, and it also depends on the usage, and they are charging per hour. So if you use it, like how regular you use, this will depends. I think for you, it won't be more than maybe more than 100, per month if you use like daily, uh, if you will be using this daily.
Okay. And I mean, technically, also because of the OpenWebUI interface, I could have, if I'm just doing like general research on something where I don't care if the data is private, I can just use my OpenAI API, which is probably the cheapest, right? And then I only use my private cloud for like my health data and other things that I really care being private, correct?
There is another like strategy to resolve this. If you before this data goes to OpenAI or any other AI model that's third-party AI models, we can your data, like your retrieved documents, for example, can go through pre-filtering or pre-masking like component, and it basically will mask any names that you have, for example, in this data, because like you don't care if you use this like your blood work or your blood information, if this information the privacy how like the privacy issue there, if this data can be traced back to you, we can remove your names
Not
from.
yes, I mean yes, but really I just want to be able to say that I know my data is private. You know what I mean? But I think what you're saying is, there's you use OpenAI and just assume that they're stealing all my data. Then there's we host our own algorithms in a private cloud and we know that no data is being stolen, right? And the middle ground is we scrub the data of any personally identifiable information, and
Yes.
there's tools to do that. But to
And
me,
most companies they do this way. Like I mean, the companies who are using OpenAI, because this is how they control. They know their workers using OpenAI, and it's not private, and they cannot say, "Please don't use OpenAI," because they cannot control it. So they are building their own AI services, and these services, any data that goes through this tool, they're just making sure that no like company
right.
name or
Yeah, I
the
understand,
names
but
they
most
mentioned.
of those companies are probably already hosting that same data that is personally identifiable with a cloud like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, right? Like they probably already have that data in the cloud somewhere, right? And
Yeah,
so I think my offering to them would be to go and say, you don't need to worry about scrubbing it because I can set it up for you so that it's in the same private cloud that you're using right now for all the data and it never leaves that. And I can show you that with certainty, right? To
and
me,
that they're
that's a way
using
better. That's a way
there
better
is
option, right? And if they really want to use OpenAI, then let's say, okay, let's use OpenAI on Azure where we can do this and set it up this way. But if you really don't trust OpenAI and you want to leverage the open source model, then let's use Llama 70B or whatever on AWS, and then we know for sure everything's kosher, right?
the reason they're doing this. It's not they're aware that there is open source model exists and they can host them. The reason is they're using OpenAI because of how because of intelligent OpenAI's models and or Claude, for example, from Anthropic, they are more intelligent than open source models. That's why they're using it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but isn't Meta's latest, release like getting closer and closer?
Yes, getting closer, but it will. I feel it will always be behind, like open, like 1 year behind the OpenAI's or Claude model.
Yeah, but then also, okay, so run it on Azure then, right? And host everything in a private cloud on Azure, which allows you to API into OpenAI stuff, but do it within Microsoft's world, right? Because most of these companies are using Office for all this data anyway, right?
But then how you like, because
Because
Microsoft also business in AI now.
Yeah, but the difference is like I don't have my own, well, I guess I do. Yeah. I mean, for me, if I'm a business owner, like going with ChatGPT directly is like my least, confident option. Going with Microsoft and leveraging OpenAI's stuff, Microsoft, which has a long history of keeping data private, and that's like one of their main, things and blah, blah, blah. To me, like that's night and day difference, and I can still leverage OpenAI's intelligence, right? Um, so anyway, long story short, I also think that um, if we're looking at use case specific um tools and building those, like the food diary and the health agent we've been talking about, then I actually think you know, fine tuning potentially some of these smaller models so that they're better at that specific task. Like I know we mentioned some of the issues with versioning around fine tuning and stuff, but like if we're talking about fine tuning a model that just does food diary stuff, I don't think we're going to have like a ton of different versions. It's really just about reducing the scope of the model to just the food diary stuff and making sure that we have a really good data set around calories and nutrition information and that type of stuff. And then once we've trained that model, like maybe we need to update it like once a year or something and do a new version. It's not like doing something like customer service where you're constantly learning new things and upscaling the model. You know what I mean? Where I could see like, okay, in that case, instead of fine tuning, we really just want to use the biggest and most advanced models, right?
Yes. Why do you need to find? Why do you think fine tuning? You need fine tuning, for example, for food diary example.
Because I want to use a small model like 5.3 for that I could potentially run locally where I don't have to pay for anything, right? But it's not 5.3 is not good enough out of the box to do the same level of tracking and keeping the food diary as a 4.0 is. But my assumption is if it was trained specifically to do just the food diary stuff, that we could get 5.3 to be as good as GPT 4.0 on just the food diary stuff.
Okay, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I still think that we can try, even with this open source model, we can try different strategies before fine tuning it. See if
Right.
it works.
And I think
Fine
for
tuning
my
method.
for my initial trying to build a community around this, I think just using the open source models from just a pure privacy standpoint is like I think there's a lot of people that are interested in that and they don't want to use OpenAI stuff at all. Right? Some of the, but I don't, everything I've seen is either you just use OpenAI and ChatGPT or you host everything completely locally. And that those don't seem this does not seem like the best option to me. If I can host these models and use them on my own private cloud cheaply, inexpensively, right? That to me seems like by far the best option, right? Because even the database, right? I really don't want it to be local only because then like administering it, backing it up, hooking it up to like it's just all a pain in the ass versus it's like hosting a website locally. Like why would you want to host your website locally? Like there's plenty of ways to do this where you maintain complete control and ownership over your website. So there should be, and maybe it's $100 a month now, but like in the future, it's going to be $5 a month at GoDaddy. You know what I mean? Right. So, so, so anyway, I think for next steps, unless you think there's something that I'm missing here, I want to set up a private cloud that hosts it seems like maybe Llama 70B is like the most powerful model that it would be worth. Like it seems like 405B or whatever that is probably overkill for what I'm looking to do.
And are you referring to Llama 3 or Llama 3.1? The
Whatever
latest one.
whatever the latest Llama
The
3.
latest one is 3.1. The latest one is 3.1. That's
Yeah. So
Facebook.
I guess what I'm saying is I want to put the most powerful open source model that you think would be cost effective. So for example, a Llama 3.1 405B, right? That's the most advanced Llama model, but my assumption is that's going to be expensive to host and run because it's so large, right? Um, so it may be worth putting it on the server though, just to see, because even if it's $1 a query, we can just stop, you know what I mean? Stop using it. But yeah, so I guess maybe as a first step, like putting all of the main Llama models. So I guess that would be Llama 3.1, 4, 5B, 70B, and 8B, right? Those are the three main ones. Putting them
Yep.
all on a private cloud that I can switch between them on Olama, right? Because you should be able to give me an API endpoint to run an Olama, right? Off of that private cloud.
Sorry, when you say Olama, what do you mean by Olama? Is it
I'm sorry, OpenWebUI is what I meant to say. Sorry.
oh, okay. So you're saying you want to host your open source models in the cloud on your maybe a Google Cloud, and you want to run OpenWebUI locally, or you also want to host it somewhere.
I want to host it somewhere because I want to be able to use it on my iPhone as well.
Okay. You need to deploy like all open source models, latest Llama 3.1 models, and also OpenWebUI in the cloud so you can use it locally.
Yeah,
But
and I think I want to do if it doesn't matter that much, I think I prefer AWS because I think everyone's familiar with AWS in the business world, and you know that's what most people use in the business world.
okay, for me, it will take a little more time because I'm mostly familiar with Google Cloud. And I think this is not true. Everyone is familiar with Google Cloud more than AWS. And
Okay,
I hear
fine. So use Google Cloud.
they have a lot of hidden fees there. Like I had this, I used AWS services before. When they say it's free, and at the end of month you have a bill like of 200, and you don't know where it's coming from. With Google Cloud, I don't have these issues.
Yeah. So okay, fine. So let's use Google Cloud then.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd love to for you to spend a few hours on my, dime, bill me for a few hours of just looking deeply at Open Web UI and seeing if there's something here that I'm missing.
Okay. So first, I will look into OpenWebUIs, see if what do you mean missing? Missing what? Like
Well, when you look at the code base, you could be like, well, they say this is open source, but it's actually not open source. They say that you host this locally, but you're not actually hosting it locally. Or there's all,
okay,
I know you want to have control over your database, and using this tool doesn't actually allow that because of this thing or something. You know what I'm saying? You
okay, if
you know
there is
what
any
you know what
bugs,
I'm looking to build, right? So you tell me, you know we've talked a lot about the vision for this, right? So I want you to look deeply at this project and you tell me if there's something about this project that makes it not a good tool for the vision that we've discussed. Because I'm surprised. I guess the one thing I will say is it seems like one guy built this basically. Um, and and it's pretty fucking cool. I mean, just from what I can do with it as a non-developer. I mean, I figured all this shit out and like it took me like 15 minutes to set all this up.
no, it's not one guy. They have like 193 contributors.
Okay. All right, cool.
maybe one guy started this in a long time ago, but then there were a lot of like almost 200 people who are contributing to this project. And this is
Okay.
only, I mean, on regular basis. There were others, I think that's maybe contributed one or two things.
Okay, yeah. So next steps, look into this project, number one, and number two, set up um the models to run on Google Cloud. I need to set up an account, correct? A Google Cloud account.
Yes, you need to set up the account, and if you never set up this, I think they will give you $300 of credit, which will be used. You can use it for the first year, and then also you need to invite me. You can invite me as a admin for now until we develop this. Once this is done, you can then remove my access. And yes, you have my email. You can invite me through this email.
Okay, when do you think we can complete all of this?
Deploying it, we can complete next week. This week I will look into their GitHub project, see if there is anything that's like just basically I will review their code base. I see it's very huge, like they have very large repository. I will look maybe into main components, like how they interact with AI stuff, how they interact with this tool calling, how they interact with the database.
Cool. And can we do a call where you go over that with me?
Sure. First, I will review this by myself, and then once I review this, we can then have a call. I will discuss with you my findings.
Great. When would be a good time for that call?
Let's see. We can do this Friday or next week, Tuesday.
Friday's good for me.
Okay.
What
So
time?
you can use the link that I sent.
Okay,
I think same time as today. It's okay.
perfect. All right,
Mm,
awesome. I'm excited about this. I feel like this is a big like accelerator for what I was looking to do.
I will send you a link that you can book for 1 hour.
Perfect.
I send on upload.
All right, awesome. I will book now and I'll see you on Friday.
Okay. Yep. See you on
Thank
Friday.
you. See ya.